Chapter 1277. Ah. Lin Feng grabbed his hair. I didn't think I could use it and it would be awkward if my mom saw it. I might as well throw it away. Yunhu's gaze landed on his face. Didn't I ask you to keep it? Lin Feng couldn't control himself. Can't you buy it when you want to use it with your boyfriend? Why do you want me to keep it for you? Yunhu looked at him, his voice slow. What boyfriend? Are you trying to provoke me? Lin Feng reached out and pulled the man's collar up. What boyfriend are you talking about? Don't tell me you're learning from those people on the internet, fooling around with anyone you meet. Yunhu arched a brow. With a flip of his hand, he pressed Lin Feng against the wall, his hand still holding onto Lin Feng's wrist. If I was just fooling around, would I have waited for you for so long? Lin Feng's face turned red at this baffling question. You can talk, but can you not be so close to me? F***ck. Lin Feng really didn't know what to say. Yunhu inched closer to the person's face and smiled slowly. Are you shy? F***cu. Lin Feng inhaled deeply. Let go of me first. Yunhu bent over. I'm not letting go. F***ck. Lin Feng was going crazy. Yunhu felt that it wasn't bad, especially when he saw the flush on his face. His heart itched, as though there was a cat scratching his heart. Just as he was about to talk about his so-called boyfriend, Lin Feng seemed to have found his savior. Lin Feng looked as if he had finally found his savior and used his hand to push him away. Get away, there's a call. There was indeed a call. From his position, Yunhu could feel his phone vibrating in his pocket. He had no choice but to let go of him. Lin Feng heaved a sigh of relief. The call came at the right time. He reached out to take the phone. When he saw the caller ID, he was completely different. He immediately pressed the answer button. F***ck. Little Spade. You have to tell me clearly where exactly are you? I'm telling you, don't find an excuse to hang up on me. Senior Lin, you're still as energetic as ever. I didn't intend to hang up. I called to tell you that Brother Mo and I are flying to Jiang City tomorrow and we need someone to cover us. Qin Mo nodded. Senior Lin, you're still as energetic as ever. I didn't intend to hang up. The captain is with you? Lin Feng's voice was filled with surprise. In the end, she decided not to tell him about the Almighty's amnesia since there were still people investigating. We'll talk when we meet. I have a car here that needs to be taken over. You can be my guarantor and we'll talk about the rest when we meet. Car? Sure. This was the advantage of being naive and sweet. She wouldn't ask too many questions. After Bojio hung up, she lifted her head and met his gaze. That person had just finished washing up, and his whole body was still emitting a refreshing mint scent. He was leaning against the door frame and looking at her. He must have heard the contents of her phone call, because his peach blossom eyes were very deep. Bojio stood up and walked over. I just made a call to our mutual friend. Oh. Qin Mo chuckled, but no one could tell what he was thinking. Chapter 1278. Bojio wasn't wrong. Indeed, Qin Mo wasn't interested in anyone else other than his prey. Especially when he knew she still had friends. In his heart, his prey only had to look at him. How could there be a friend? Qin Mo smiled, but there wasn't a hint of warmth in his eyes. But at this moment, he wouldn't allow himself to show it. He hadn't forgotten his persona. He had to be gentle at all times. Shall we go downstairs? Qin Mo asked, reaching for his coat. Bojio watched his tall and slender back view, unable to read his thoughts. But she understood that people who had lost their memories tended to distance themselves from others. But the Almighty was different. He seemed to believe everything that she said. They didn't bring any luggage. In such a lawless area, identification wasn't required and they could check in immediately. Hence, it was easy to leave the hotel. After a night's sleep, the the Almighty seemed to have recovered completely. It didn't look like he had had a fever the night before. Bojo was the same. It wasn't because of her healing abilities, but after thinking about it, the things the Almighty had done last night were enough to make a person sweat until their fever subsided. "Boss, do you have petrol here?" Bojo decided to stock up on petrol for little Blackie before leaving. Unexpectedly, the boss's expression changed when he saw them, turning into a servant that answered every question. "Petrol? I have a freshly filled car here. If you need it, I'll get it right away." As the owner spoke, when he passed by the Almighty, he revealed a flattering smile. Bojo arched a brow. The boss hadn't been this way when they had checked in last night. Why was it so different this morning? Seeing the Almighty was like a mouse seeing a cat. No, it was even scarier than seeing a cat. "Brother Amo, you came down yesterday?" That was her first reaction. Chin Mo didn't deny it, a warm smile on his face. "I informed the boss when I asked for the petrol." Bojo was suspicious. "Just a greeting? It seems like Sugar Daddy doesn't trust me." Chin Mo replied nonchalantly, "I thought you would believe anything I say. Aren't you my lover?" Bojo couldn't stand the way the Almighty was talking to her. Even though his attitude was casual, she started to reflect on herself. "Of course I trust you." Chin Mo lowered his gaze. Bojo couldn't help but lean over and kiss him. "I'll believe everything you say." Chin Mo chuckled. "Boss's tone wasn't good yesterday, so I taught him some manners." Good teaching. When the boss who brought the gas heard the young man's words, he just wanted to send these two living bodhisattvas away as soon as possible. "Do you have any idea how lethal this one of yours is? You're treating him like a porcelain doll." The boss dared to be angry but did not dare to say anything. After all, when the man glanced at him without any emotion, he could feel a chill all over his body. He didn't know if the youth was really stupid or just pretending to be stupid. Since she brought such a man with her. He knew this kind of person the best. He looked gentle, like the most loyal butler. In fact, if one wasn't careful and bit down on him, he would be like a demon deacon, sucking his blood dry with the most elegant dining posture. Chapter 1279. With that, the boss couldn't help but admire the youngster's calmness. After all, he had experienced how scary this man could be. But this man was impressive. He was able to turn into another person in front of the youngster. There wasn't the slightest bit of malevolence from last night. He was acting innocent. Chin Mo was satisfied with the effect of his gaze. In front of his prey, he didn't want anyone else to speak. He didn't want to tear off this layer of disguise because the youngster's reaction was interesting. As long as he showed the slightest sign of weakness, she would hold him in her palms and use kisses to coax him. It was a refreshing feeling for Chin Mo. Besides, his prey wasn't stupid. It wouldn't be interesting if she simply thought that he was good. From the youngster's reaction, it was obvious that he had already guessed what he had done. However, he had still praised him for teaching him well. Chin Mo couldn't help but smile. Even when they were in the car, Chin Mo was still smiling. The moment little Blackie turned on the AI system, the car shook from the force. What was wrong with the devil? Why was he smiling so sweetly? He seemed to have sensed the change in the Lamborghini. Chin Mo turned over. "This car isn't bad. Other than the land and water forms, what else is there?" "There isn't any form, but it can be used as a network hub." Bojo was in a good mood. It was a satisfying thing to have the Almighty stay by her side obediently. Xiao Hei, on the other hand, didn't feel so good about it. It felt that there was something fishy about the devil praising it. As an intelligent car, the information it had gathered told it that a devil like this would never praise anyone unless there was some ulterior motive. But its master. Sigh. Little Blackie didn't want to say anything else. Ever since the devil had appeared, its position as the #1 car pet hadn't returned. Chin Mo did have a motive, but it wasn't a big one. To him, he was more interested in a prey that only had him in her eyes. Hence, he didn't say anything else. Bojio waited for a moment before turning the car. It was a beautiful maneuver, a smile on her face. Oh right, the password for this car is, Chin Mo, I like you. Chin Mo knew his name a long time ago. Now that he heard the youngster's words, his hand that was twirling the poker card paused. Sounds like Sugar Daddy's personality. I think so too. Bojio turned the steering wheel. If you like it, say it. Chin Mo didn't say anything, but his smile deepened. He looked like a devil as he narrowed his eyes. Chi, what an idiot. Tell him everything. Aren't you worried that he'll drive away? With that in mind, Chin Mo glanced sideways at the youngster's face. Light seeped in, forming a halo. His skin seemed to be transparent. White and clean, even the fine hair could be seen. He knew very well how this face felt to the touch. Not only her face, but also the curve of her waist when she turned sideways. It was hard not to like the warm jade in his hand. Chin Mo thought, as long as his prey can stay like this, with a pair of eyes only looking at him, he wouldn't lose interest in her in the short term. Chin Mo watched as she licked her lips, his eyes deepening. I'm indeed a little thirsty. I'll go buy it. She reached into her pocket and walked towards the vending machine. Her movements were casual, probably because of her long legs, which made her look dashing. The girl who was also waiting for the plane overheard their conversation and wanted to strike up a conversation. Handsome, I have an unopened bottle of water here. If you're thirsty, you can drink it first. Chin Mo glanced sideways, glancing at the mineral water that the girl handed over. He was about to turn her into his believer. Chapter 1281. It was easy to hint at someone. As long as he knew what the other party was thinking, it would be easy. But Chin Mo didn't want to take the bottle of water. Compared to his prey, these people looked too dirty. Had his appetite been spoiled? Chin Mo arched a brow. Just as he was about to stop, someone appeared on his shoulder. The youngster's pleasant scent wafted over. There was a smile on her face as she whispered into his left ear, I'm sorry, my boyfriend isn't used to drinking other people's food. Chin Mo didn't need to turn to know who was speaking. Except for the prey he was interested in. His current sugar daddy was an exception. No one would say such a thing. Chin Mo tilted his head and saw a beautiful side profile. She pouted her lips in his direction. She seemed to be saying, you caused trouble. Was she jealous? Chin Mo was curious. He reached out and pinched her chin, planting a kiss on it. She had just drunk the water and her mouth was filled with sweetness. Did you secretly eat sweets? Chin Mo asked casually. He didn't seem to have any intention of pushing the youngster off him. Instead, he smiled devilishly. My sugar daddy is really mischievous. Bojio was caught off guard by the kiss. Moreover, the two girls could hear the Almighty calling her, so she couldn't be bothered to move. She had to be direct when it came to declaring her ownership. The girl who was flirting with him was confident in her looks, which was why she acted so boldly. She hadn't expected it to be so awkward. When she had heard their conversation, she had thought they were really brothers. She hadn't thought of anything else. But now that she looked at them, they were here on vacation. If it wasn't that kind of relationship, what else could it be? The girl blushed as she took the bottle back. Bojio smiled at her. In an instant, the girl blushed again. Compared to the unapproachable man, the youngster seemed more considerate. Chin Mo noticed the commotion. His gaze deepened. When he looked at the girl again, the color in his eyes had changed. It was as dark as the night, endless. The girl shuddered. She felt as though he was going to kill her. The corners of his mouth were clearly hooked into a smile. Why did he give off such a feeling? Chin Mo didn't look at anyone. Instead, He hugged the youngster and placed her between his legs. They were both waiting for a flight, but no one sat like that. She didn't sit directly in his arms. Instead, Chin Mo sat on the chair while Bojio sat like a huge doll. She stacked on top of him and sat in the same position. However, she exerted force on the front half of the chair. It was also because the Almighty's legs were too long that most people would be able to sit like that. The people at the side widened their eyes. This was overseas and they were still so open. How could they be like this in China? Bojio also felt that they were attracting too much attention. However, the Almighty didn't change his position at all. Instead, he wrapped his arms around her waist from behind and rested his chin on her shoulder. He closed his eyes, his eyelashes long like fans. "I'm tired." Those 3 words successfully stopped Bojio from moving. She turned to caress the Almighty's head, his black hair slipping past her fingertips. He was just like a little princess when he was young. Bojio smiled, her heart softening. She coaxed, "We're going to board the plane soon. Bear with it a little longer, MMH?" "All right." Chin Mo didn't loosen his grip. His handsome face was mostly buried in her shoulder, leaving only his side profile that made people want to turn back to look at him. It was indeed breathtaking. The girl at the side had never seen such a person before. When he looked at her, his malevolent aura would send chills down anyone's spine. But the next second, when he faced the youngster, his fake gentleness seemed to be able to melt everything. However, the youngster was coaxing the devilish man like a child. The girl felt her heart racing. She didn't dare to say anything else and pulled her friend away. The other onlookers, on the other hand, were all curious. After all, it was rare for a grown man to be coaxed. Chin Mo didn't care about this at all. As long as his prey was within his control, everything was fine. But he realized that he wasn't completely in control. He didn't know what it would be like when they arrived at a place she was familiar with. Including the phone call she had made previously. Their mutual friend? Chin Mo arched a brow, his gaze deep. Soon, the plane started to arrange for check-in. Since it was a tour group, not many people checked. There weren't any sudden incidents on the plane. But there was one point that no one noticed. There was a gaze hidden in the crowd, filled with darkness and indignation. It was Fan Jia. After she had escaped, she had thought of many ways to get a new identity. Finally, she had settled everything. When she went to look for him, there was no news at all. When she saw the video online, she suddenly remembered that he would definitely return to Jiang City. Because in his subconscious mind, he wanted to return to a place he was familiar with, to crush all those who deserved to die. This was the real Chin Mo. Fan Jia watched as they left, a smile forming on her face. Psychological hints wouldn't go wrong. Now that he was staying by the youngster's side, he probably didn't have any sincerity. The biggest possibility was that he treated him as prey. Her teacher had once said. As psychologists, they were the best at disguising, especially when they had ulterior motives. Now, she just needed to return to Jiang City, find a way to get in touch with Chin Mo and guide him a little. Then he would truly belong to her. Because memories would change along with psychology. Fan Jia didn't feel that there was anything wrong with taking over a position that didn't belong to her. She turned and hid herself again. Now, her image was everywhere. Fan Jia didn't dare to show her face, purposely making a scar on her face to buy a late-night flight. At this moment, the plane had been flying for more than 2 hours. Bojio and Chin Mo sat side by side. They had booked the entire first-class cabin. Firstly, they didn't want anyone to spy on them. Secondly, before boarding the plane, Chin Mo had said that he was tired. As a domineering CEO, if he didn't show off his wealth now, when would he? Moreover, Bojio's money was going to rot if she didn't spend it. She decisively became a tycoon. In the end, the person who had said that he was tired wasn't sleeping. His long legs were slightly crossed as he read a newspaper. His entire body was filled with an aura of abstinence. But at this moment, there was a hint of darkness mixed in. On the other hand, Bojio tilted her head to the side, her hair falling down, revealing her true color. Silver gray? It seemed like his sugar daddy was hiding something from him. Chin Mo arched a brow, his right hand moving slightly, allowing her to lean against him. After all, he liked her body temperature, it was warm but not scalding. The stewardess, who was pushing the dining cart over, saw this scene as soon as she arrived. After lowering her voice, she asked gently, "Sir, what would you like to drink?" "It's fine, just a blanket, thank you." When Chin Mo said this, there wasn't any warmth in his eyes. It was probably because of the youngster's frown. "Okay," the stewardess replied. When she turned back, she saw him patting the person in his arms with one hand. His voice was low and slow, it was extremely melodious, as though it could easily hypnotize a craftsman. The stewardess listened in a daze, shaking her head. She had almost forgotten what she was going to do. Chin Mo looked at Bojio, reaching out to pinch her face, lowering his body. "You better not look at anyone else, my sugar daddy's little prey." Bojio didn't have a light sleep, probably because the clothes in her hands and the surging scent in her nose were too familiar, making her feel comfortable. Just as she was about to hit the ground, she woke up and saw his left hand playing with the poker cards. His other hand was placed on her head, stroking her hair. After seeing her open her eyes, he smiled and planted a kiss on her forehead, but vaguely, there was an indescribable danger. "This is Jiang City?" Bojio followed his gaze, taking his hand over and placing it in her own. She played with it for a while before saying, "This is Jiang City, don't you like it?" "I don't dislike it." Chin Mo felt the warmth in his fingers, the light in his eyes dissipating a little. "I just can't remember how I used to live here in the past." Bojio laughed. "You are very famous here, many people like you, you have a group of brothers who are loyal to you, but you still like me the most." Chin Mo arched a brow. From a certain perspective, the prey he had his eyes on seemed to be very thick-skinned. "Oh. What else? What else?" Bojio thought for a moment. "You have a crush on me but are too embarrassed to admit it, so you gave me a lot of books for me to comprehend on my own." "What are the books I gave you?" Chin Mo asked casually. Bojio straightened her body suavely. "Overbearing CEO falls in love with me, Where Are My Sweetheart? There are also some books I can't remember." Chin Mo tapped the corner of her lips with his finger. "What?" Bojio arched a brow. Chin Mo leaned over, kissing her lips lightly. His breath followed. "Water stain, you didn't drink obediently when I fed you water. But I'm curious, what did you comprehend from the books?" "Of course it's your first awakening of love." Bojio wrapped her arms around his neck. When she smiled, the mole at the corner of her eyes glistened. Chin Mo's lower abdomen tightened, his gaze deepening. His fingers slid into her sweater through the blanket. When he smiled, he didn't know why, but his body temperature rose as well. Bojio could feel his strength clearly. She suddenly trembled, tears welling up in her eyes. Chin Mo lowered his voice, low and sexy, right beside her ear. His breath hit her, making her arch her back. Chapter 1282. How to Make Your Body Feel Happy. Bojio realized that her earlobe was being bitten lightly. That sexy voice and hot breath hit her ear, sending a numbing sensation through her. Bojio knew that the Almighty wouldn't do anything to her since they were about to alight. But the subtle teasing was unbearable, her eyes turning red. He seemed to like seeing her like this, chuckling softly beside her ear. "It seems to be effective." He wanted to play with it in his palm. Just like a little toy. But for some reason, when he heard the breath in his arms going wild, he actually had a reaction. This made him release his hand. But she was smiling, the corners of her lips lifting as she kissed him, like a siren in the water. "It is indeed effective." Chin Mo's gaze deepened. If the broadcast hadn't interrupted his thoughts at the right time. Perhaps he would reveal all of his true nature. For instance, he might have abducted her. Such a beautiful prey should be held in his arms and raised in a pampered manner. As for other things, be it a kiss or something deeper than a kiss, he should be the one to teach her. Perhaps he could plan it well. After all, he liked the way she smiled at him, the way her eyes seemed to be covered with a layer of moonlight. But similarly, he didn't like that kind of warmth. Because Chin Mo knew that this person was looking at the past him. With that thought, a thin layer of coldness swept over the surging emotions in his eyes. Chin Mo laughed lightly. It would be better if we weren't on the plane. With that, his gaze landed on her neck. Then he lowered his lids, planting a kiss on it, followed by a light bite. Bojo wasn't able to reach for the vibrating phone in her pocket. She was even kneading it into a puddle. Bojo suspected that the Almighty was doing it on purpose, since every time she picked up the call, he seemed a little unhappy. Even though he was smiling, no matter how she looked at him, he looked like a rich young master. But his actions were in line with the gentleness he purposely created. Come to think of it, he had been like this when they were young. Every time she went to play with other children, he would always stand by the side and smile like a prince, but it was different when he was with her. His little face was cold as he washed her hands, and he would even bite her fingers without saying why. The Almighty's personality was just that weird. Bojo was used to it. She held onto his shoulders tightly. She couldn't tell if it was ticklish or painful. She frowned slightly, her voice trembling. Gentler. When Chin Mo heard that voice, his eyes moved slightly. His gaze deepened, and even the imprint in his eyes reddened. Let me answer the phone. Bojo's breathing was unstable, the strands of sweat sticking to her flushed cheeks. Even if I don't pick up the call, we have to alight. Chin Mo was done. He pushed her hair away from her face and smiled gently. Of course I have to get off the plane. What else does my sugar daddy think I'm going to do? Bojo remained silent, waiting for the heat to dissipate. But the feeling of touch in some places had not faded. Chapter 1283. Chin Mo's lips brushed past Bojo's ears. Even though he didn't kiss her, it was more intimate. He looked into her eyes, chuckling lightly, his voice mesmerizing and deep. Just a single sentence from him was enough to make one's body heat up. Fortunately, they knew how to restrain themselves. Bojo pushed him away, reaching for her phone. She could hear the stewardess's high heels. The next second, the curtains were pulled open. Distinguished guests, our plane has landed safely. Please take your belongings with you when you get off the plane. Have a pleasant journey next time. This was probably the benefit of spending a lot of money. Even on the plane, there was a private space. Bojo caressed her neck, smiling suavely. Thank you. The stewardess was dazzled by her smile, nodding. Bojo placed the phone by her ear, lowering her voice as she said, hello. She and the Almighty didn't have any luggage. Bojo took a step before realizing that the Almighty wasn't following her. She turned back and saw Chin Mo's gaze sweeping towards the stewardess. His lips moved slightly, but she didn't know what he was saying. The stewardess's pupils constricted. She seemed to have been hypnotized, her body arching. Bojo couldn't see this because of her position. The stewardess was standing with her back facing her. But even so, the Almighty's smile made her hand pause for a moment. She wasn't a naive girl, she knew what that smile meant. But what should she do? That was her Chin Mo. Regardless of what he turned into, he would always be her little princess. Bojo reached out, tugging his wrist over. She tilted her body slightly, blocking his gaze towards the stewardess. She smiled faintly. Brother Mo, I'll get jealous if you flirt with someone like that. Chin Mo hadn't expected her to turn back so suddenly. After his wrist was touched, he couldn't be bothered with the hypnosis he had completed. After all, he couldn't let his prey notice anything wrong with him. He shifted his gaze away casually and said faintly, I get jealous when you smile at someone like that. Bo-jio stilled as she was being countered. That was the time difference. The air stewardess seemed to have woken up. She saw the young man holding the man's wrist. At such a close distance, it looked intimate. Bo-jio coughed lightly, dragging the Almighty away since the stewardess was still in shock. However, it was just a guess. She also vaguely understood one thing. It would be difficult for the Almighty to stand in the esports arena again. Previously, she had been thinking of bringing the Almighty back as soon as possible. However, he had neglected one point. Right now, would he still coordinate with everyone in the team and fight a match? All of this was unknown. It was better to think of a way to stop him from thinking of manipulating others. Handsome, harmless, and able to lead people's thoughts unknowingly. Such a dangerous Almighty. He had to keep it by his side. Bo-jio glanced over. Brother Imo, it seems like I have to watch you 24/7. Just like you used to look at me looking at you. At that time, she had always thought that he did not believe her. When the two of them exchanged places, Bo-jio finally understood. He looked at her as if he didn't want anything bad to happen to her. Right now, she was feeling the same way. She was afraid that one day, he would regain his memory and regret what he had done. Chapter 1284. Watch me 24 hours a day? Are you sure? Chin Mo didn't understand Bo-jio's thoughts, but he chuckled. It was light, but his gaze was as deep as the stars. I will torment you at night, but that's good too. You can put some of the things you learned into practice. When he said this, his breath was right behind her ear. It was slightly hot and slow, as though it was intentional. Bo-jio's uneasiness dissipated. She held on to his hand and continued walking. No matter what, it was good that he was here. Moreover, he allowed her to hold on to his hands so obediently. From a certain perspective, she felt that she was taking advantage of him. After all, he had allowed her to hold on to his hand when they were young. In the past, he would only tilt his head and glance at her. Now, it was good. She held on to his hand and he would follow her. Regardless of the reason, the blissful feeling was still the same. Indeed, Chin Mo wouldn't struggle free. He probably found it strange too. Or perhaps, he was indulging his beloved prey. Hence, he allowed himself to temporarily become an obedient pet boy. After all, he claimed to be a sugar daddy. A hint of playfulness flashed past Chin Mo's eyes. He had never seen such a pure sugar daddy. It tasted sweet in his mouth. He was indeed interested in those books. Today, he could study them properly. Bo-jio didn't know what he was thinking, but she knew that even if he changed his appearance, the Almighty's aura wouldn't change. She took out 2 black masks. After walking out of the tunnel, she gestured for him to lower his head. Chin Mo glanced at the things in her hands. He arched a brow. It seems like I can't be seen in Jiang City. It's not that you can't be seen. You are too popular and have too many fans. Bo-jio seemed to understand the Almighty's temper. She added, I don't want others to see you since you are mine. It was obvious that this sentence had an effect. She could see the faint smile on his lips under the bright light. Chin Mo didn't move. Instead, he lowered his body. His intention was clear. Bo-jio didn't need to lift her feet. She just needed to move her fingers, grazing his ear. The black mask unfurled, covering his handsome mixed-race face. How is it? Chin Mo asked casually. Bo-jio wore her mask as well. Through the black cloth, she smiled. Very handsome. She was even more arrogant than before. He had to be praised. So what if such a great god was dangerous? In fact, to a certain extent. In this way, he had just released everything, including some of his childhood habits. Bo-jio knew how dangerous the Almighty was when he wasn't even able to suppress his malevolence. He wouldn't be a rat like Fan Jia who only knew how to play tricks in the corner, nor would he be a criminal who created grievances like Kawang. He would do whatever he wanted, unrestrained by worldly rules. If he wanted to make a move, he would make a move, just like on the plane. He was more cunning than any psychopath. Like a demon, he could kill gracefully. This was the reason why people were afraid that his personality would change drastically after being hypnotized. Bo Jiao understood everything. That was why she had to hold on to him and not let go. Not for the sake of protecting anyone. She was clear that she was the only one by his side. It was probably because this person was too strong. He was so strong that the first thing everyone thought about after he lost his memory was how dangerous he was. But no one had thought about his uneasiness and guesses. Who was he? Why did he appear in this place? Who should he trust? What was he thinking when he was facing so many speedboats and guns? The moment she thought about it, her heart softened. When she turned back, she saw his arrogant and aloof expression. It was clear that he was a little childish. How could he be so adorable? I want to make you small again. MMH? Qin Mo thought he had heard wrongly, but after leaning forward, he confirmed that she had indeed made a sound, even though it was soft. Bo Jiao continued, then I can hug you in my arms and not let anyone bully you. Bully him? Qin Mo arched a brow. The youngster's stern and serious expression entered his eyes. It was that gaze that stopped him from executing his plan. In this world, who could bully him? He was really an idiot. But why didn't he want to leave? The only explanation Qin Mo could find was that his interest in her hadn't diminished. That was all. The two of them walked out of the terminal. They didn't have to wait for any luggage, so they were faster than the others. But the way they held hands without any taboo caused many people to turn back. The two of them were good-looking to begin with. Wearing masks to share the burden did not detract from this aspect. Instead, it added a sense of fashion. A girl exclaimed, "This is the most compatible couple I've ever seen. The airport is indeed the airport. I can see two handsome guys at once and they are a couple." Qin Mo lifted the corner of his lips as he listened to the conversation. A couple? It sounded familiar, but he couldn't remember where he had heard it before. Of course, he wouldn't waste his time on such things. Because he still had to face the mutual friend that she had mentioned. Outside the airport, a long Rolls-Royce was parked in the middle of a row of cars. It was a low-profile black, but even so, it was enough to make a group of people stop. After all, there weren't many such cars in the country. Which family's young master was back? Everyone was guessing if he was a rich and powerful person in Jiang City. But no matter how hard they searched, they couldn't remember who was driving this car. Moreover, the person standing in front of the car was unfamiliar. He looked to be in his 60s, a Chinese-British old man with a tall and slender figure. There weren't many people who could wear such a classic suit, but this person did it. He held a pocket watch in his hand and glanced at it from time to time. He looked like a noble deacon that only appeared in comics, his entire body exuding wisdom. Was there a big production team filming a movie here? Or was it because Christmas was coming and they were filming a promotional video? After all, it wasn't realistic. But the next second, the old man smiled. He looked at the international exit kindly, his gaze landing on one spot. Then he opened the back door in a gentlemanly manner and gestured for them to enter. At this moment, everyone noticed the two people walking out. They were both wearing masks but had an extraordinary aura. They wanted to take a few photos. When Bo Jiao saw this scene, her heart was in turmoil. After all, she hadn't expected Grandfather Butler to drive such a car. It was fine on Fifth Avenue. But this was China, it was too eye-catching. Chapter 1285. In order to avoid being recognized. Bo Jiao held on to Qin Mo's wrist and entered the car. After the car door closed, she looked up and smiled faintly. "This is Grandfather Butler, a relative who watched me grow up." Qin Mo lifted the corner of his eyes and met the gaze from the rearview mirror. That gaze made him smile. Grandfather Butler. How could the old man not hear the nonchalance in his words? This man wasn't born to be obedient. Now that he was so obedient, it made him frown. But looking at the young master's expression, he was happy. The old man retracted his gaze and showed his professionalism as a butler. Young lord called Grandfather Butler. Young Master Chin is a guest, you don't have to be so polite. Chin Mo understood the meaning behind his words. He touched his teeth with the tip of his tongue and smiled innocently. Finally, someone new to be on guard against him. But he was probably the only one who had never thought about being on guard against him. Chin Mo's gaze landed on Bojio's face again. If he wanted to take her away, he would have to go through the old man first. Chin Mo's intuition was terrifyingly accurate. Grandfather Butler was also a doctor. He knew the effects of hypnosis. But at the same time, he understood that he wouldn't interfere with his young lord's decision. But there was one thing he could try to see if he could recover the man's memory. You haven't eaten yet. There are fresh ingredients at home. Young Master Chin, what would you like to eat? Since the other party was polite, Chin Mo wouldn't tear apart his darkness. He continued to smile. Anything is fine. Let's see what my sugar daddy wants to eat. Sugar daddy? Grandfather Butler glanced sideways at his young lord. His head hurt slightly. What kind of title was that? How many times had he told his young lord to be a lady? Bojio smiled beautifully. She was satisfied with the title. Hot pot, it'll be quick. With that, she tilted her head and grabbed Chin Mo's hand, placing it in her palm. Brother Mo, you have to remember something. MMH? Chin Mo raised a brow. Bojio smiled suavely. My favorite game is the keyboard, my favorite food is hot pot, and my favorite person is you. Chin Mo stilled, something surging in his eyes before he slowly lowered them. I don't know what I like to play or eat the most, but there's one thing I'm sure of, you're the only person I like the most. Yes, this was the perfect prey. Especially when her eyes only fell on him, they were incomparably beautiful. However, the premise was that she would only be good to him. Chin Mo thought about it. He hadn't paid much attention to what she had said before. It was time to give it a try. Since he wanted people to leave willingly, he had to act a little more convincing. Chin Mo held her in his hands. His eyes were focused, but at the same time, there was an unsettling darkness. At the very least, when Grandpa Butler saw this scene, his mood was quite complicated. According to his analysis of Chin Mo, once his hypnosis was activated, anyone would become dispensable in his eyes. This was related to the environment he grew up in. He had an indifferent personality, and in the past, he had a responsibility. Now that there was nothing that could restrain him, he naturally didn't need to be afraid of anything. There were too many criminal psychologists in this world, and under normal circumstances, they all had a motive. Chin Mo was scary because he didn't have a motive. Even if he committed a crime one day, it might just be because his hands were itchy and he was unhappy. However, such a person actually followed his young lord back to Jiang City and clearly expressed his possessiveness. The old butler didn't know if he should be happy for his young lord or worried. If Chin Mo wanted to do something now, even he wouldn't be able to stop him. The journey from the airport to her apartment wasn't long. It was a commercial apartment that Bojio had specially chosen. This apartment was the closest to the Chin Group's club. In less than 3 days, it would be more convenient for the team members to gather together for training. There would definitely be people watching over there. Bojio was very familiar with their methods. It was safest for Lin Feng and the others to come here. Moreover, with Grandpa Butler around, they could avoid other problems. Since the Almighty loved to play games so much, perhaps he would remember something when he saw his team members. She had communicated with Movie Queen about this. Movie Queen felt that this was the most reliable method. She knew most of her son's life. Other than business games, it was his team members. He didn't spend much time at home. Bojo realized that from a certain perspective, the heavens had never been gentle to this man. At least she had Grandpa Butler by her side. When she had been young, she would talk to others when she missed him. According to his personality, no one would tell him when he missed her. Bojo tilted her head and looked at the transparent hand. The poker cards appeared again. She knew it was a precaution against a new place. Her phone rang again. It was Lin's phone. Bojo opened it and put it on speaker. Hello. Hey, little spade, you're back, aren't you? Lin Feng's voice was filled with excitement. F***ck, you're back faster than I expected. Where's Captain? Bojo glanced at him, a question in her eyes. She smiled. Where can Brother Mo be? Of course, he's beside me. How did you know we're back? The news on the internet. You guys sure are eye-catching, Rolls-Royce. Outsiders might be looking at the liveliness, but we are looking at the details. Lin Feng laughed heartily. He was clearly very happy. Just the back view of you and Captain, I can tell with one look. Bojo held her forehead. Even a naive person like Lin Feng could tell. Qin Mo's fans would definitely be able to recognize the tall and slender figure. Fortunately, Grandpa Butler had done the follow-up work. No one would be able to find them. I'll inform everyone and meet you guys now. Lin Feng was about to move. Bojo glanced at him from the side. Tomorrow. Tomorrow? Lin Feng frowned. Since they were back, it would be better to meet them as soon as possible. The Asian Cup was starting and their competition would be arranged by their captain. Bojo replied, she could see the Almighty's wariness. Wariness meant that he didn't like it. After all, for someone with amnesia, it would be difficult for him to accept the settings given to him in just one day. From a certain point of view, it was too much. Bojo wanted them to meet as soon as possible, but she seemed to have forgotten something. The Almighty needed a period of acceptance. Chapter 1286. Lin Feng looked at the phone that had been hung up, feeling a little uneasy. The uneasiness started to grow along with the comments online. Just as Bojo had said, even he could recognize them from the back. Some of the fans could recognize them too. The already soft voices of resistance. For some reason, it grew louder. When the public relations department contacted Feng Yi, they wanted to tell him that someone was behind the scenes, but they couldn't pinpoint the exact company. That was strange. But this time, Feng Yi didn't care. He glanced at the photo online, glancing up with a smile. Assistant Su. Boss Feng. The assistant hadn't expected Feng Yi to look at him in such a manner. Feng Yi lit a cigarette, holding it between his fingers. Some stories can only be told to people who understand. Many people wouldn't understand how much effort she put in to bring Qin Mo back. So forget it, it's good that he's back. Assistant Su felt that Boss Feng was different. Feng Shang felt the same way. His brother was indeed different. In front of others, he was still the playful fox Feng who wouldn't allow anyone to take advantage of Supreme Alliance. But behind others, he was a heavy smoker. It seemed as though he knew something but couldn't change it. Feng Shang stammered as he asked the person, but he couldn't get an answer. But he was happy. They had seen the photo online. Coco and him, along with the other teams, were all happy on the official Weibo, tagging Spade Z. At the dining table, Bojo was still thinking of a way to get the Almighty to accept her. After much thought, she decided to find evidence to convince him. That was the most direct method. The Almighty had always been a suspicious person. And now, he was probably even more so. The hot pot lasted for a long time. Qin Mo watched as the fellow lowered his head to scoop up the mutton for him. For some reason, the food in his mouth tasted good. The old butler took in the scene as well. Did his young lord bring back a little princess to pamper? Young Master Qin was such a big man, couldn't he use his chopsticks? Letting out a long sigh, the old butler knew in his heart that the words he had told the young master to be reserved were basically treated as trash. The hot pot is greasy, and there's Chinese oolong tea in the pot. Young master, do you want to drink it here or go to the sofa? The old butler picked up his pocket watch and glanced at it. Even though he had come to Jiang City, his British aura hadn't changed at all. Both places aren't good. I'll head back to my room with Brother Mo. Bo Jiao turned, wanting to grab a tissue to wipe her mouth. Unexpectedly, the moment she moved, she felt something on her face. It was the Almighty's fingertips, slowly caressing her lips. His movements were very natural. In order to make it easier for the Almighty to clean her up, she lifted her handsome face, not forgetting to smile. When Qin Mo saw her smile, there was only one thought in his mind. How could this prey be so likable? The old butler, who had always been a gentleman, coughed lightly and said, "Then I'll go and clean up another room." Too troublesome. Bo Jiao smiled mischievously. "There aren't enough rooms, I can share a room with Brother Mo." Qin Mo glanced at the double-story apartment in front of him, his fingers still feeling a certain someone's delicate skin. He didn't expose her. The old butler inhaled deeply. It seemed like it was a waste to find such a huge room for his young lord. There were 8 rooms, how could it not be enough? But grandfather butler knew what his young lord was thinking. He lifted the teapot with his white-gloved hand. "I'll send it to your room and bring a set of pajamas for young Master Qin." "All right." Bo Jiao replied without the slightest hint of embarrassment or heartbeat. Qin Mo supported his chin with his hand, his thin lips curving up without a trace. He had never seen such a proactive prey. It was a rare sight. The old butler was still observing Qin Mo. He had wanted to discuss something with the man, but when he took off his shirt and revealed something on his neck, his fingers trembled. He turned towards Bo Jiao. That was why. He remembered that his young lord had asked for many such amulets when she had been young. At that time, she had been like a little monk. Even though she had been at the 5th Avenue, she had been close to a senior monk. That senior monk's amulet wasn't common. The old butler retracted his gaze. He didn't stay any longer. Even so, Qin Mo noticed it. When he changed his sleepiness, his dark eyes flickered under the light. Bo Jiao wasn't in a hurry to drink the tea. She could tell that grandfather butler was looking for her. She reached out and pushed Qin Mo into the bathroom. "Brother Mo, shower first. We can talk after." Qin Mo smiled. It was a charming smile, but there was a dark fog floating in his eyes. What a pity. What's a pity? Bo Jiao arched a brow. Qin Mo bent down, his breath landing on her ear. "I thought we would shower together. After all, we are lovers, aren't we? It's a pity that even you are hiding something from me. How can I be at ease with such prey by my side?" With this in mind, Qin Mo's eyes dimmed. Bo Jiao couldn't see from this angle. She hugged his waist and smiled. "No, Brother Mo, I realize that you like to tease me." Qin Mo didn't have any warning signs when she hugged him. He thought for a moment and scoffed. She was coaxing him again. She knew how to do it. "I want to shower together." Bo Jiao's smile didn't diminish. "But I have to talk to grandfather butler first. I have to tell him that no matter what you become, you will always be my little Princess Qin." Qin Mo looked at her. After a moment, he laughed coldly. "Little Princess Qin? Where did she get her nickname from? Brother Mo, you loved it when I called you that." Bo Jiao looked sad. "You even forgot about that." Sigh. Hearing her sigh, Qin Mo lifted the corner of his lips, revealing a thought-provoking expression. Then he held onto her waist, his breath seductive. "Don't worry, even if I forget everything, I won't forget how I want you. Which man would like to be called a little princess? Little gangster, don't you know how to lie?" Qin Mo found it amusing. His kiss carried a sense of punishment. He bent down and nibbled on her neck. His breath was a little hot and imprinted on her fair skin. There was a wave of irresistible itchiness. Bojo didn't know where to put her hands. In the end, she arched her back. Brother Amo. Chapter 1287. Flirting, he only knew how to flirt. After pushing him away for a long time, Bojo rubbed her own face. She remembered the Almighty's words and laughed softly. Did he think she didn't dare? Once she was done talking to Grandfather Butler, she would look for him in the bathroom. She could use this chance to record the Almighty's actions. She could play how he had flirted with her for him after he regained his memory. That could be considered a dark history. Bojo pressed her fingers against her lips, smiling nonchalantly. Grandfather Butler and his young lord had a tacit understanding. He was already waiting in the living room, the pocket watch still in his hand. Bojo walked over. Don't worry. The 3 words made the old butler sigh. His current situation is very unstable. No, that's not right. It should be said that his current situation is very stable. He even knows to disguise his killing intent. Young master, you should know how dangerous he is. He didn't hurt anyone. The moment she finished her sentence, she knew she was being unreasonable. After all, the Almighty had tried to hypnotize others before, but she had stopped him from doing so. The old butler swept a glance at her clean and smiling face. With you around, he will definitely restrain himself if he wants you. Unexpectedly, his young lord laughed even more. MMH, Grandfather Butler, I'm telling you, that's how he cares about me, in the past and now. Old butler. Was that the main point? Bojo had been stifled when she had been in the military. She had only told little Blackie about her love life, which wasn't enough. Now that she finally had the chance to meet Grandfather Butler, she grabbed a pillow and propped her chin up. She smiled sweetly. He doesn't say it, but his actions are honest, and he is even jealous of himself. He has always been adorable. The old butler maintained his gentlemanly image. Once again, I understand the Chinese saying that a grown girl can't be kept at home. Grandfather Butler, if that's what you're worried about, you don't have to worry at all. I'll stay at home and trick Brother Amo into marrying into our family, Bojo suggested with a smile. The old butler caressed his temples. He knew his young lord was determined. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The Qin family would agree to their precious young master marrying into the En family. The En family would probably go crazy. His young master had hardened his heart and only wanted this person. You should know that he's pretending to be good to you right now. Anyone who is hypnotized will have a huge change in personality, and it's the same for him. I'm afraid he's interested in you now, but young lord, what happens when he loses interest in you? The old butler was to the point. Chapter 1288. So, Grandfather Butler, look, he doesn't remember anything and is still protecting the things I gave him. This isn't interest. Bojo glanced over, her eyes dark. Besides, I'm not a good person. Even if it's interest, if I can make him fall in love with me once and twice, I can make him fall in love with me a 3rd time. The old butler paused for a moment before breaking into a smile. Young lord, you should know that I will support whatever decision you make. But there's one thing I won't let anyone bully you. That cold fellow from the Qin family always made the girl take the initiative. He wasn't a gentleman at all. Bojo thought. Now that the Almighty wasn't bullying her, she wanted to bully him instead. She thought for a moment before bringing the small accessories in the room next door upstairs. She was going to take a photo later. The old butler knew that his young lord had been waiting for someone ever since she was young. She had always been very familiar with his good points. When she was young, she would have big round eyes. Whenever she saw a child, she would comment, Grandfather Butler, let me tell you, he isn't as good looking as my pet. My pet just has to stand there and he doesn't need to say anything to make people like him. Really, he's really attractive. He would even tie my shoelaces for me. Every time my shoelaces were untied, he would tie them for me, praising it so much that it could only exist in the heavens and not on earth. It was just a longing in the deepest part of her heart. Now, he was by her side. His young lord smiled a lot more. Let's just leave it at that. Grandpa Butler wanted to see if there was any way to let that cold kid of the Chin family recover his memory faster. Chin Mo knew that his memory was incomplete. But to him, memory didn't seem to be of much use. Before he came, he was thinking about what his prey would say. As for what her grandfather Butler would say, Chin Mo didn't need to think to know. It was to remind her to be careful of him. Heh. Chin Mo chuckled and hid himself. He was like a demon. He appeared silently and left without a sound. A certain person's words seemed to be repeating in his ears. It seemed to seep in bit by bit. Unconsciously, the corners of his lips would rise. Chin Mo didn't want her to know that he could hear her words. Hence, he filled the bathtub with water in advance. The phone she had given him was still in the room. She was indeed an idiot. She had even given him a phone. He clicked on the desktop. There weren't many icons on it. The one that was opened the most was a game. Chin Mo glanced at it but didn't open it. Instead, he opened the web page and searched for something. Just as he said, after listening to the conversation in the living room, Chin Mo really sat in the bathtub and waited for a certain someone. His body was half tilted, and the white foam in the bathtub rose up, along with the misty water vapor. It made him look more abstinent. However, it was still different. Even he himself did not realize that there was a smile on his lips. This was the scene Bojio saw when she entered with her things. The sexy Almighty's body leaned against the bathtub, his long legs crossed lazily. The light shone down and refracted on the pure white walls. The man's entire face was illuminated by the light. He was so handsome that it made people feel a little dizzy. She didn't know what he was looking at. It could make him smile lazily, without any defense, and even with a little pride. Chapter 1289. He seemed to have sensed her presence. The Almighty, who was still swiping his phone, lifted his brows. His arrogance disappeared, as though he was trying to hide it. Then, he freed one of his hands and gestured in her direction. That hand had distinct joints and was slender and beautiful. Under the light, it seemed to be transparent. Bojio thought to herself, Grandfather Butler had said so much but he hadn't mentioned anything about how to deal with the Almighty's honey trap. But on second thought, there wasn't a need to deal with it. When the Almighty used his honey trap, it was best to pounce on her. There was a saying that was right, when the Almighty wanted to seduce someone, it didn't matter. Bojio walked over, curious. What are you looking at? If the Almighty saw the icon on her phone, he would have a sudden impulse to play a game. That way, he would know their intimacy level in the game. Unexpectedly, he chuckled. Do you want to know? Bojio nodded. Chin Mo's voice was calm. Come closer, I'll show you. So mysterious. Bojio took another step towards the bathtub and was about to tilt her head. Just then, he raised his hand and grabbed her wrist. There was a loud splash. Her entire body was soaked in the bathtub, her hair and body wet. Especially the white shirt she was wearing, it became faintly translucent. He could see the bandages inside, as well as the soft semicircle, white and curved. As for everything else, it was a mess. He took the opportunity to hold her waist, allowing her to sit in his arms. The steam started to spread and the temperature of the water was slightly high. The moment Bojio entered, her body trembled. Moreover, the way he was hugging her made her half a head taller. This way, his breath would land on her chest, accompanied by the heat in the bathroom, making it impossible for her to hide. My sugar daddy, have you forgotten what I said on the plane? On the plane? Bojio arched a brow. Chin Mo caressed her waist, his voice carrying a smile. When there's no one around, you can take out the books I gave to Sugar Daddy to read and learn. Aren't you curious about what I'm reading? Take it. A phone was shoved into Bojio's palm. She glanced over instinctively. Bojio was stunned by his gaze. What was the Almighty looking at? Was it completely devoid of godhood? Overbearing CEO falls in love with me? She usually wouldn't open such a book. However, the title of the book wasn't important at this point. The main thing was that when the Almighty flipped to this page, the male and female leads were flirting. The feeling of the plot was there, and the location was still the office. The corners of Chin Mo's lips curled up again as he watched a certain someone's thin lips slightly pursed. He leaned over while hugging her, the heat from his body pressing against her ear. His smile was low and pleasant. But it's a pity that this book doesn't have a bathroom scene. But it doesn't matter, compared to those useless descriptions, I'm better at this. Before Bojio could react, he kissed her through her wet shirt. The buttons of the shirt were bitten off by him. It was a light kiss, but it made her hands tremble. Every time he flirted with her until she couldn't take it anymore, he would suddenly stop. It seemed that he didn't want her. Bojio smiled again, a devilish glint in her eyes. There was one thing that the Almighty seemed to have gotten wrong. Should he tell her about it? He didn't have the final say. Whoosh. Chapter 1291. There were still water droplets on her jade-white ankles. Her back was wrapped in a towel. Her entire body was covered in water, glowing under the sunlight. Her eyes were as black as the fog. Indeed, she looked like a siren. Especially when she smiled, the corners of her lips curved slightly. She walked tall and straight, exuding an extreme sense of beauty. She didn't seem embarrassed because of her appearance. Bojio touched her cheeks, looking suave. She had originally planned to pounce on him and get it over with. Who knew that before she could do anything, that person would pull her into his arms again? Wrapped around her was a dry towel. Even her eyes were wrapped in it. Brother Mo, Bojio felt that the Almighty wasn't fighting fair. She couldn't even see, how was she supposed to attack? Chin Mo watched as the little hooligan tried to act cool after being drenched. Now, she looked like an exasperated kitten, stretching out her claws in an attempt to act coquettishly. MMH? He arched a brow, pressing her head onto his shoulder. Bojio finally calmed down. She realized that the towel wasn't just around her, there were two of them. The Almighty was also wrapped inside. She was in direct contact with his skin. MMH, that was how it should be. Why was he trying to distance himself from her? Bojio's eyes turned into crescents, her hands about to move. What are you trying to do? Chin Mo freed one hand, pressing down on her restless claws. He arched a brow, finding it funny. It seems like my sugar daddy likes me a lot. Bojio lifted her head, looking at Chin Mo with a wicked smile. That's right, that's right. Even if you like me, you can't touch me. Chin Mo adjusted her, looking as though he was taking care of a domestic prey. Turn around and look at the mirror. Bojio arched a brow. What am I doing? Blow your hair. She had to do something that wouldn't let her imagination run wild to divert her attention. Hence, the Almighty came out with a hairdryer. He raised one hand high, his aura strong. Bojio took a moment. She couldn't force him. It wouldn't be good to bully the Almighty when he lost his memory. All right, blow your hair. When she turned around, her entire back was leaning against his chest. The two of them were wrapped in the same towel. It was neither too big nor too small, just perfect. Even the Almighty wouldn't be able to take advantage of them in such a position. When Chin Mo heard her sigh, he laughed again. Why? Are you disappointed that I blew your hair? What bad things are you thinking about all day long? I want to sleep with you. Bojo felt the gentle breeze blowing over her head. She smiled brightly. It's so obvious. Brother Mo, can't you tell? Chin Mo looked at that face and couldn't help but reach out to pinch it. I'm very expensive. Let's dry your silver hair first. Silver hair? Bojo tilted her head. The most popular granny gray. It's quite handsome. Isn't it handsome? Chin Mo met her clear eyes. The tear mole was especially obvious. Her nose, mouth, and even her collarbone were beautiful. His body moved, bending down to kiss her lips. His eyes were deep. You're really pretty. Until now, she was the most pleasing prey he had ever seen. Not as pretty as you. Bojo's words were true. Little Princess Chin had been pretty since she was young. Chin Mo ran his fingers through the youngster's hair slowly. The hairdryer was still blowing gently. Are you sure you want to use the word pretty to describe me? No man would like to have such an adjective on him. Devastatingly beautiful? Bojo thought about the idiom she had learned. Chin Mo arched a brow. Femme fatale? These 4 words should fit the description, right? Chin Mo laughed and said slowly, why don't you say I'm Daji who bewitches the nation? How can you be compared to Daji? Bojo laughed. You're much prettier than Daji. Since you're so comfortable to hug, I won't throw you out the window. Chin Mo had just thought of this when the youngster continued. Brother Mo, I'm definitely an incapable ruler in ancient times. If you're Daji and you want to bewitch the nation, I'll definitely let you do it. Don't you think I'm too rash? If others say bad things about you, I'll want to beat them up. No wonder you always said I was rash when I was young. I'm quite rash. When Chin Mo heard this, he turned off the hairdryer and tapped her face rhythmically with his fingers. I don't think you're rash at all. Every word she said seemed to be able to seep into her heart. She was so cunning. I'm still rash. For example, I really want to sleep with you. Bojo tilted her head, her tone lazy. So, Brother Mo, if I were to touch you, you have to stop me. I can't stand seduction, you can use it on me more often. Chin Mo laughed softly. He wasn't pretending anymore. He placed the hairdryer aside, his aura a little distant. You can even tell that I'm using seduction? It's a pity you didn't use it all the way. Bojo laughed lightly and sneezed. You didn't even let me have a taste of the sweetness. Chin Mo glanced at the person in front of him and frowned. Then he lifted his arms and carried her horizontally. He walked into the room and stuffed her into the blanket. Ah! Bojo exclaimed. You're covering me so much, it's too heavy. There was only a blanket between them. After removing it, he didn't even let her have a taste of the tofu. Where's the medicine? Chin Mo didn't answer her question. Bojo was pressed down and couldn't move. What medicine? Flu medicine, Chin Mo replied, pressing the person who was about to pop her head back in. Bojo suddenly understood. The Almighty was concerned about her sneeze and thought she was sick again. Was that why he was looking for medicine? In the end, she managed to get a taste of the sweetness. Bojo only revealed a pair of eyes. Under the blanket, her lips were curved into a smile. Chin Mo tilted his head. When he saw this scene, he knew he had overreacted. His fingers paused for a moment before he sat by the bed, smiling nonchalantly. Are you proud? No, actually, I'm feeling a little cold and uncomfortable. It must be from the bath just now. Bojo pressed her head to make herself look more sincere. Chin Mo's smile deepened. Cold? Then add another quilt. The Almighty was a man of his words. He pulled open the wardrobe and retrieved a summer blanket, placing it over her body. Are you warmer now? What else could she say? This was her act and she had to finish it. I'm just a little thirsty. Drinking water would cool her down. Chin Mo arched a brow. Thirsty? I'll get you a cup of hot water, how about that? Hot water? Bojo waved her hands. Forget it, I'm not that thirsty. Since the Almighty was so black-bellied, he might as well continue to seduce her. Chapter 1292. The Almighty was still smiling when he said this, his breath landing beside her ear. It was slightly seductive. Bojo tilted her head. Ice and fire, hot and cold at the same time. It's not good for my body if this continues. Chin Mo stilled, not expecting such an answer. His thin lips landed on her forehead. What about now? It's hot. Bojo smiled. Brother Mo, I just ate a piece of candy, do you want a kiss? I guarantee it'll be sweet. Chin Mo removed a layer of the blanket. After hearing her words, he arched a brow lazily. In your dreams, little gangster. Sleeping on the same bed without a kiss is the real gangster. Bojo took a deep breath, her pale face tinged with a tinge of red. She wanted to kick the blanket away. The moment she moved, Chin Mo pressed down on her legs, his voice deep. Do you want to catch a cold? The blanket is thick. Bojo didn't want to hug him through the blanket as it would be too distant. Chin Mo glanced at her rascally look. Do you regret exposing my honey trap? Yes. Bojo watched as he reached out to pull her over and changed the blanket. The weight on her body was light but the temperature was comfortable. She took the opportunity to hug his waist. Chin Mo didn't reject her but he pointed at a certain prey. Don't move your hands. It's a little difficult, Bojo replied seriously. Why don't I play for a while? With both hands, I'll be able to maintain some self-control. Chin Mo replied, his emotions indiscernible. Bojo knew he had seen through her probing. She took the phone over and thought for a moment. Brother Mo, what? Chin Mo leaned against the headboard, his fingers twirling a poker card. Bojo tilted her head. Do you want to take a look at your official Weibo account? You want me to take a look? Chin Mo's gaze deepened when he asked this. Bojo nodded. I want you to know there are many people waiting for you. Chin Mo didn't say anything. He emptied one hand, his expression nonchalant. It didn't matter if he took a look or not. He wasn't interested in the past. But from the looks of it, she wanted him to take a look. Chin Mo's breath turned cold. Well, no one would like the current him. It was probably the same for her. Chin Mo lifted his thin lips, his eyes cold. Phone. Bojo moved her fingers and turned off the screen. Forget it. Chin Mo's expression was noble. If you don't like it, then don't. Bojo laughed. It doesn't matter if I lose my memory or not. It's better this way, no one will snatch it from me. Chin Mo's gaze trembled, but he quickly regained his composure. He said slowly, then you have to watch over me. I will, Bojo replied, gripping the phone in her hands. Chin Mo glanced over. Aren't we going to play games? I thought you didn't like it. I'm not fighting anymore. Bojo pressed the tip of her tongue against her cheek. Chin Mo tapped on her phone screen. If you like it, I'll watch you play. That way, you won't be up to no good. Bojo arched a brow. Brother Mo, if you don't say the last sentence, Sugar Daddy will like you more. That's a pity, the last sentence is what I really mean. Chin Mo patted her face lightly, his voice lazy and pleasant. Let's start, let me see how you play. Chapter 1293. The game's music started playing. This was the first time Chin Mo found someone so thick-skinned and likable. But it was understandable. A domestic prey would definitely be pleasing to the eye. At this moment, Bojo entered the page and chose her character. She was using an alternate account so her level wasn't eye-catching. But the name. Chin Mo arched a brow. Little sweetheart Chin is mine? Bojio's scalp turned numb. Brother Mo, don't mind the details. Why would I? You're my sugar daddy after all. Chin Mo leaned over and bit her ear. Bojio trembled, the tips of her ears turning red. Chin Mo was satisfied, his gaze returning to the screen. There's someone talking on the screen. Bojio saw it too, it was someone fighting for a position in the wilderness. She didn't allow it. That person was obviously unhappy. He didn't switch and continued to drag it out. It wasn't good for development to play with a temper. Bojio knew that and didn't say much since it was common sense to fight for money before capturing the person. But her teammate was still talking. The one playing as an assassin, look at my level and look at yours. Can't you tell I'm 2 levels higher than you? Why are you trying to snatch it from me? Let me tell you, don't scam me or I'll complain about you. Chin Mo's eyes dimmed as he listened to the words that came from the phone. His initial disinterest turned to one person. What is he doing? That was when Bojio realized that the Almighty had really lost his memory. He was just like a new person. He's farming. Assassins have to farm beasts to raise their finances or they won't be able to develop. Every assassin has to think of a way to get to level 4 as soon as possible, and the most effective way is to farm beasts. Hearing this, Chin Mo smiled, reached out his hand, and asked her to change her route. What is it? Bojio was confused. What was the Almighty up to? Chin Mo tapped the screen. I'm playing. You know how to play? Bojio's eyes shone with surprise. Chin Mo replied faintly, no, I saw what you did just now. There's a button that allows you to farm beasts. That was right. But... Bojio watched as the Almighty stood motionless in the bushes, waiting for someone to farm beasts. What was he doing? Very quickly, Bojio understood his intentions. That was because the voice of their jungler rang out again, F***CK, I've been farming for half a day. Next. That person realized that no matter if it was blue, red, or any other small monster, they would all be accurately snatched away at the last slash. He was thoroughly cursing over there. Bojio watched as the Almighty lifted his fingers slightly and pressed the voice button on his phone, continuing with his job of snatching kills. I'm hanging up. F***CK. This time, he typed. His teammates were helpless. All they wanted was for that high-ranked player to play well. That person snorted and split the message into 3 parts. Tell that little sweetheart Chin to stop stealing my beasts, and I'll go out. With that kind of positioning, what else can he do other than steal my wild beasts? Anyone can kill him. Bojio glanced over and reached for her phone. She typed a few words. You don't want to come out? Then don't come out. As soon as she finished speaking, she controlled the game character in her hand. Like a cold gust of wind, she swept towards the wilderness on the other side. Her clothes fluttered, and even her sword glowed with a white light. You're courting death, the assassin said. Chapter 1294. Double kill. Double kill. Double kill? How could it be a double kill? The assassin who had been yelling just a moment ago suddenly froze. He looked at the screen. After the kill, the elegant figure used a skill and leaped back to his original position. This caused the enemy sorcerer to chase after him. That person didn't return to the tower. Instead, he hid in the bushes after collecting a wave of soldiers. At this moment, he had recovered to half his HP. On the map, that person leaped out. The sorcerer saw this and quickly attacked. However, that person dodged the freeze with a zigzag movement. Then, the sound of Sword God rang out. It was very rhythmic. Once, twice, thrice. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Triple kill. Triple kill. It was continuous, without a break. Even the time couldn't be measured in minutes because it was too fast. The team members were still reviving in the spring. Looking at the scene on the map, everyone was stunned. The enemy sorcerer who died even typed a string of words on the public chat. She probably didn't expect to be killed. After all, she was at full HP. And she remembered that the opponent was at low HP. Vampiric knife. This person used a vampiric knife? He used it so early. How confident was he in his fighting style? His teammates glanced at each other. Before they could even react, Yi Chen had already left. The game's music blared again. Tyrant has been killed. The entire team's experience has doubled. The first to react wasn't his teammates but the enemy assassin. I've been fighting Tyrant for half a day. However, just as he was typing, what he didn't expect was that after killing 2 monsters, the white figure leaped back and aimed an electrode at his back, followed by a big move. He jumped back in fright and returned to the city with low HP. That scared me. I almost died. I remember that the jungler isn't high level. The high level one is the other one. Why is he so fierce? I don't even dare to leave the tower. Me too. What kind of maneuver is that? It's unbelievable. Compared to the opponent's panic. On the other side, the assassin who was yelling that he wouldn't go out unless he was allowed to have fun turned red and white. He pressed on his phone. You're not a substitute player, are you? Bo Jiao didn't bother about him. She cleared her own jungle in a few moments. She didn't just clear her own jungle. When she plundered the opponent's jungle, she would definitely take some wild boars with her. She successfully explained the phrase, "Your jungle is my home." She didn't snatch the title of Pig Hierarch for nothing. His DPS was the highest in the entire game. Wherever he went, he would either take away a player's head or a wild monster. It wasn't that the opponent didn't want to chase after her, but the hero she was controlling was too agile and fast. If they went after him alone, they would definitely be killed in seconds. When the 3 of them chased after him, he ran away. It was as if he was walking someone. After walking them for a while, he attacked them from behind and dealt a set of damage. In the blink of an eye, their long-ranged ADC was crippled. A score of 0-6 was going against the wind. In the middle of the game, when the opponent saw Bo Jiao's figure on the screen, he didn't even dare to come out. The saddest thing was that without control, it wasn't safe to stand under the tower alone. The white figure was so fierce that he could cross the tower and kill. Moreover, his HP recovered extremely quickly. This wasn't fun at all. Chapter 1295. Those who played this game would usually want to score higher. Besides, everyone knew that a skilled jungler could bring up the tempo of the match. It wasn't easy to find such a god. Before it was over, someone started to send a message. Jungler little brother, why don't you add me as a friend? I'm so cute, can't you stop killing me and help me score higher? Under normal circumstances, Bo Jiao wouldn't look at the public chat. But today, Qin Mo was here and he would look. When he saw the message, Qin Mo broke into a smile. It was a beautiful smile, but there was a hint of coldness in his lips. Is she flirting with you? MMH? Bo Jiao finally noticed the next sentence, freeing her hand to reply. Not little brother. The other side continued to act coquettishly. What is he if not little brother? Uncle? Uncle is good too, uncle is more charming, moi. It's little sister. The moment Bo Jiao finished typing, she was once again distracted by the Almighty. He hugged her with one hand and tapped on her phone with the other. This time, the Almighty's target was clear. He laughed nonchalantly. Just kill her. Bo Jiao. That wasn't a good way to treat a girl, right? The Almighty probably didn't know how fierce she was when she grabbed someone. What is it? Qin Mo smiled faintly at her face, his fingers tapping against hers, bringing a wave of numbness. Are you really going to have tender feelings for the fairer sex? He paused, as though he knew what Bojio liked. Send her back to the city, there will be a reward. The Almighty's last sentence was too tempting. She would send the coquettish one back to the city. Bojio lifted her sword. While everyone was still immersed in the words its little sister, she leaped over and killed the confused sorcerer in the middle lane. The moment the sorcerer saw that he was dead, he typed, F***CK. The next moment, the other side burst into laughter. Ha ha ha, who asked you to pretend to be a girl? You're screwed this time. Frequent surfers would know that there was a popular saying in the game. If you realized your opponent was good at jungling, pretend to be a girl and act coquettishly. 90% of the time, you would be able to avoid death. That mage had been playing this trick for a long time, and it was a tried and tested move. That was how unlucky he was today. Soon, he realized a problem. The worst part was that he had just died. Rather, wherever he went. That jungler followed them wherever they went. They didn't even care about the big picture, just to kill him. The male magician was dumbfounded. Unless he didn't step out of the house, he would definitely die if he did. What kind of grudge? He typed on the public chat, handsome missy, you don't have to go so far, right? I was just acting coquettishly, but you caught me so tightly that I have nothing left to live for. Bojio arched a brow when she read the message. The Almighty told her not to reply and to continue killing. She didn't agree to this. Instead, she stopped and typed out a string of words. My boyfriend saw you acting coquettishly just now. He's watching me right now. He's jealous. I have to think of a way to make him happy. A string of dots and dots appeared on the public screen. It wasn't uncommon to see people flaunting their affection in games. But in the past, they had never been abused like this. But today, in order to make her boyfriend happy, a girl kept catching people? To be honest, these big men were really abused. Chapter 1296. Wasn't this something a boy would do to coax a girl? When they played games, it was always their girlfriends who played meat, and they who played jungles. They had to die in front of their girlfriends. Why was it that everyone else's style was the same? Tell me, how could it not be cruel? There was no way to play this game. After being captured 4 times, the male mage never left the city again. Every time Bojio was done, she would glance at the Almighty. Yes, he was smiling. There was warmth in his eyes as well. Sigh, little Princess Chin was so cute. What could she do? Continue grabbing. No one could do anything to Bojio. The current situation also confirmed what she had said at the beginning. From start to finish, there was no chance for the other jungler to come out. The man couldn't say anything else. It was a victory without any suspense. The game went on for 10 minutes. Bojio's maneuvering was basically a show. There were even people who directly recorded it, and the title was very appropriate. Have you ever seen a handsome young lady kill someone to make her boyfriend happy? When this video was first released, not many people watched it. But then there was a comment below, is the jungler really a girl? His positioning, mechanics, and hand speed are all unbelievable. His skill level is close to that of a pro player, right? Professional? Don't scare me. Why would I scare you? Look closely. Even some VIP streamers wouldn't be able to play at such a pace. Most importantly, the jungler says she's a girl. I have to say something. I feel like this person's movements are a little familiar. I feel the same way. I won't say her name. I don't want to bring shame to her. But I don't think it's possible. She has disappeared and won't come back. Ahem, I think so too. Let me give you a hint. I'm a fan who likes to be cute on the spot. Look at this ID, it says Little Secretary Chin. Little Secretary. This won't do. The couple fans are starting to make up stories. What I can't stand the most is that, my boyfriend is watching from the side and is jealous, so I have to make him happy. I think it's better not to make wild guesses. Perhaps the name is just a coincidence. The Asian Cup is about to start and Almighty Chin isn't back yet. Besides, it has already been proven that Spade Z is a girl. As a passerby, I just want to say that she should restrain herself. For the sake of Supreme Alliance, she shouldn't come out again. Chapter 1297. Feng Yi had actually told them during the meeting not to reply to any comments on the internet, be it good or bad. He had even set a limit on their internet usage. He was worried that their mental state would be affected. In the esports industry, there were too many people who didn't understand. From the disdain in the past to now, there were finally people who wouldn't say that it was just a gamer. Countless people were putting in hard work. There were also people who found substitutes to do live broadcasts. In order to earn money, they formed a model to please the fans. The fans were the father. As time went by, more and more people felt that they had the right to decide what the team should be like. However, some people seemed to have forgotten. This was esports. On the competitive stage, ability was the final word. People in the industry, when they first came into contact with this industry, they didn't see much potential in it. The reason was simple. They loved it. Perhaps it was hard for girls to understand that feeling. Sitting in a dormitory, pushing the opponent's city, playing games until midnight, kicking their friend's chair, taking out their phone to order takeout, chewing on a chicken wing to start another round. Days like this would never come again after they left school. Hence, they cherished it. Similarly, they hoped that the team that appeared in their youth could go further. They understood what it meant to support them. To buy a ticket and watch them compete unscrupulously like before, winning and even winning for the country. Not like now, where they fell into anxiety again and again. Every time, it was because of some people's love. Was there psychological pressure? Esports players didn't just have psychological pressure. In terms of training hours and computer time, no one could beat them. Simple office workers or students. At most, they would be scolded by their superiors. As for them, they would be attacked by everyone on the internet. They couldn't retaliate, the most they could do was say that they had low standards. Probably no one would care about the lifespan of the industry. Take Yin Wuyao for example. No one knew why he liked to smoke. It could relieve his fatigue and prevent him from worrying too much about his neck. The back of his neck really hurt. When the training was intense, he would sit in front of the computer for 8 to 9 hours. He was also worried that he wouldn't play well during the competition. When the pressure was high, the quality of his sleep was extremely poor. Even now, he would doze off in the day, giving off a feeling that he couldn't wake up. Many people said that it was the aura of the Almighties. He was so lazy that he looked like an otherworldly expert. In fact, they were really sleepy and wanted to sleep whenever they had the time. They had to adjust their mentality by themselves. Lin Feng had originally thought that he would be reprimanded after his rebuttal, so he was prepared. After all, Feng Yi had also called. But this time, for some reason, the voice was different from before. Did you see CEO Chin? We were supposed to meet today, but Little Spade told us to wait until tomorrow. Lin Feng might be naive, but he could tell from his tone. Fox Feng, have you been hiding something from us recently? Feng Yi was still sitting on the office chair. He leaned back and said, there is one thing, but I wasn't sure before. Now, I have a feeling. Lin Feng. Chapter 1298. What do you mean? Fox Feng, are you joking? Even if Captain retires, he would still be better than us. Lin Feng was extremely anxious. To a certain extent, Feng Yi knew every member of Supreme Alliance. Lin Feng was a naive person, the more anxious he was, the more uneasy he was. Feng Yi reached out to press between his brows. There will always be special circumstances. Is Captain's hand completely failing? Lin Feng took 2 steps forward with the phone in his hand. That's fine, as long as Captain watches over us when we play. Actually, I don't agree with Captain playing again. The doctor once said that his hand isn't suitable for gaming, so this is a good chance. Lin Feng spoke more and more. In the end, he raised his hand and ruffled his hair fiercely, his voice wilting. Fox Feng, what exactly happened to Captain? Feng Yi knew he was mentally prepared. Amnesia, he forgot everything, including games and... With that, he paused, adding, we. The word we seemed to have hit Lin Feng's head. He stilled, his eyes turning red. That's why Little Spade brought him back. It's confidential, I don't know the details. Feng Yi tilted his head and lit a cigarette, his voice slow. But fortunately, he wasn't alone. He knew a little about what had happened 3 years ago. It was the same for Lin Feng and the others. That person came back with a hand injury and a high fever, just to be able to make it for the competition. But there were some things that could be missed. What they couldn't forget was the injury on his shoulder. When he changed the bandage, even the ignorant could tell it was a gunshot wound. What did he do when he wasn't around? They weren't sure. But every time he came back, there would be news a few days later about which case had been solved and which overseas compatriots had been sent back safely. Once, twice, thrice. After many times, it would no longer be a coincidence. Others might not know. He, Yunhu, and Lin Feng all had some connections in their families. Furthermore, they had both lived in the same courtyard. It wasn't like they didn't know the connection between them. Feng Yi didn't hold back. Some people would reject their previous lives after losing their memories. Actually, I wasn't the first person to realize that young Master Qin had forgotten how to play games. It was Little Spade. She just sent me a message, so you can be prepared when you meet tomorrow. There's nothing to prepare. Lin Feng stood up, his voice unusually serious. Supreme Alliance's captain will only be Qin Mo. Even if he doesn't know how to game anymore, he will still be our god. No one can replace his position. Feng Yi smiled. Then prepare for tomorrow's meeting. Tell them that you guys should get together before the competition. What about the matter on the internet? Lin Feng coughed lightly. Feng Yi's gaze deepened. I'll handle the public relations and give you a satisfactory answer. From a certain perspective, Feng Yi was also very protective. However, everyone was clear about this. After knowing this, no one would feel good in their hearts. Lying on the bed, Lin Feng was still thinking about how Little Spade must have felt when she was the first to find out. Chapter 1299. Was it painful? Bo Jiu didn't know how it felt. She watched as he took the phone like a new player, not even familiar with the map. Not to mention, he moved slowly and even knocked into the wall. Once upon a time, she had made a vow. She would never let him fall from his pedestal. She could still remember him dressed in white, wielding a long sword. With a wave of his sleeves, he could take away a drop of blood. Even now, there were still videos of his games on the major websites. Be it his movement or his technique. They were all like textbook existences. Only on the map of Hero could he come and go as he pleased, as elegant as the wind. The repeated 3,000 knife cuts and the 5 consecutive kills. It was like a brand. The moment Bo Jiu closed her eyes, she would remember it. That was why she reacted that way when she saw the assassin mocking the Almighty's movement. Those people would never understand. What kind of existence was he? Bo Jiu didn't feel terrible, but her heart ached. She just wanted to make her little Princess Qin happy. She could do anything. Moreover, it was just catching people in the game. She glanced at the Almighty, interested, and started the second round. Bo Jio understood as she played. The Almighty's interest was to create trouble for her. For example, when she was killing the blue beast, he would point his finger over and control the character to retreat. Her previous attacks would be in vain. She wouldn't have enough aggro and would have to pull the monster again. When she killed someone, the Almighty never stopped her. He would even laugh softly beside her ear. So sinister. It's all thanks to Brother Mo's teachings. Bo Jio liked to hide in the bushes, she had learned it from the Almighty. Qin Mo placed his chin on her shoulder, listening to the main point. I taught you the game? Partly. Bo Jio's eyes lit up. How about this, I'll tell you how you chased me. Qin Mo arched a brow, his voice lazy. I chased you? Of course, I can't be the one who chased you, I'm a girl. Bo Jio didn't look at Qin Mo when she said this. The little gangster had her guilty moments too. Qin Mo chuckled, leaning over and kissing her ears. I'm glad my sugar daddy still remembers she's a girl. Bo Jio, then, how did I chase you? The enthusiasm of a prey couldn't be dispelled, especially when it was kept at home. Qin Mo felt her warmth, his lips curved slightly. Chapter 1300. The pavilion closest to the water enjoys the moonlight first. Qin Mo repeated these words, reaching out lazily to turn off her phone. It sounds like you're the only one who thinks it. Bo Jio glanced over. Alright, regardless of whether you have such intentions, I do. The pavilion closest to the water enjoys the moonlight first. Is that the reason you joined the team? Qin Mo asked nonchalantly. Bo Jio replied seriously, I was bewitched by Brother Mo's beauty and couldn't help myself. I even signed a contract to sell myself for 3 years. Brother Mo is the legal representative of the team. That means I'm the sugar daddy. Qin Mo chuckled, the corners of his lips lifting as he watched the person in his arms. Bo Jio finally understood what it meant to say too much was bound to slip up. She started to change the topic. That's not it, I'm definitely richer than you. I entered the team to sleep with you. Oh. Was it an employee sleeping with the boss? Or was it a member sleeping with the captain? Qin Mo asked with a smile on his face. Bo Jio knew she wouldn't be able to get anything out of this conversation. Hence, she reached for her phone and prepared to play another round. The man was looking at her from behind, but his posture didn't change. He was still holding her in his arms. Why aren't you killing beasts? It hasn't refreshed yet, it's been less than 10 seconds. I forgot. It refreshed 120 seconds after the kill, it's out now. Bo Jio paused, glancing up. How did you know? Did he remember? Or did he remember? Is it difficult? Qin Mo tapped the screen. After watching you play so many rounds, it's easy to come up with a conclusion. Bo Jio had forgotten that even though the Almighty had lost his memory, he was still a genius, especially as a psychologist. No one could compare to him in terms of memory. How long can my blue energy last? 90. How long will the Tyrant King fall into darkness? 10 minutes after the start of the game. Bo Jio's eyes lit up. How long will my big move take to recover? Are you testing me? Or do you want me to get familiar with the game? Qin Mo looked at the person in his arms and smiled, but the warmth in his eyes dimmed. I'm not someone who likes to play games. I liked to play games in the past, but that doesn't mean I like it now. Bo Jio glanced up, noticing his slight impatience. She switched off her phone. I won't play if you don't like it. I thought you liked it since you were so excited about messing with me. That's because you're playing, Qin Mo said suddenly. Both of them were stunned. Qin Mo frowned. Bo Jio couldn't stop herself from laughing. Qin Mo leaned forward. Very proud? That's right. Bo Jio's eyes lit up. Brother Mo, does this mean that you like me a little? Qin Mo's voice was calm and he laughed. You are my sugar daddy, how can I not like you? He was pretending to be gentle again. What else could Bojio say? As long as you like it. On the other hand, Qin Mo's eyes deepened as though he was still wondering why he had blurted out such a sentence. However, there was nothing wrong with playing with domesticated prey. She was likable after all. But there was one thing. She didn't know if it was because he didn't allow her to play games. She followed him wherever he went, even when he went to the bathroom, like a little tail. Chapter 13:01. Nothing much, I just wanted to ask where my reward is. Bojio hadn't forgotten what the Almighty had said. As long as she destroyed the sorcerer, there would be a reward. Qin Mo arched a brow in amusement. She had followed him all the way just for a reward? Wasn't she childish? Bojio pouted when he didn't reply. Are you trying to fool me? Close your eyes. Qin Mo reached out and tapped on her frown. Was she throwing a tantrum? Bojio broke into a smile and closed her eyes obediently. It wasn't easy to get a kiss these days. To match the Almighty's height, she even tiptoed. Qin Mo watched her actions and couldn't help but smile. He placed the things in his hands into her pants pocket and said nonchalantly, "It's done." Done? Bojio opened her eyes. He hadn't even touched her, how was it done? Aren't you going to kiss me? Bojio asked, disappointment evident on her face. Qin Mo asked, what's going on in your head? Didn't I say it before? Bojio replied innocently. Qin Mo was reminded of the answer she had given him. 2 words, sleep with him. Was he that easy to sleep with? Qin Mo didn't look at her face and pretended to take the thing back. Since that's the case, you probably don't want the reward I gave you. Who said I don't want it? Brother Mo, how can I take back the reward I gave you? Bojio blocked him with one hand and pressed her other hand into her pocket. That was when she realized what it was. It was a round piece wrapped in a beautiful packaging. A chocolate-flavored milk candy? Bojio paused. She was suddenly reminded of how he had been like this in the military. Regardless of the time, he would always have a piece of candy in his pocket. It was because she liked to eat it. Qin Mo frowned when he saw the person in front of him not moving. What did she mean? She didn't like it. That shouldn't be possible. From his observation, this girl really liked to eat sweets, and among all the sweets, this was her favorite flavor. But why was she looking like that? Qin Mo stuffed one hand into his pocket when he didn't see the smile or the hug he had expected. His mood didn't change, but he shouldn't have asked that question. Why? You don't like it? When she heard the familiar voice, Bojio snapped out of her reverie. She tightened her grip on the candy, her eyes turning into crescent moons. I like it a lot. Qin Mo glanced at her. You like it very much? However, he didn't seem surprised at all. Instead, he seemed to be reminiscing about something. Qin Mo tilted his head, his stray hair perfectly covering his eyes. As long as you like it. What this person said and what she thought were not the same. But it was normal. Usually, people would miss their lovers when they didn't lose their memories. With this in mind, Qin Mo lifted the corners of his lips slightly. Even though he was smiling, there wasn't any warmth in it. Of course, Bojio wouldn't be able to detect his presence. He would only hold her waist in bed and harshly bully her. Only when she begged for mercy would he kiss the corner of her eyes. He would not go to the last step. Chapter 13:02. The sentence had probably left a deep impression on her. The next day, when she woke up, Bojio was still by his side. Brother Mo, did you talk to me yesterday? Bojio followed him and asked, Brother Mo, did you talk to me yesterday? Talk. Qin Mo stood by the side of the bed, buttoning his shirt casually. When he heard her words, his well-defined fingers paused in the halo. They were so white that they were almost transparent. What did you say? Bojo watched the lazy expression on his face and frowned when she heard his question. Was she muddle-headed from sleep? You said you're the one beside me now. Chin Mo smiled. Would I say something like that? Indeed, it doesn't seem like something you would say. Other than his poisonous tongue, the Almighty didn't have any sweet nothings. Bojo stood up, stepping onto the floor barefooted. Perhaps she really was muddle-headed from sleep. Unexpectedly, the moment her feet touched the ground, he grabbed the back of her collar and threw her back onto the bed. Put on your shoes. Just like when they were young, he would always stare at her. Bojo glanced at his face. She bent down and pulled the slippers up. That should be enough. Chin Mo couldn't be bothered with him, heading into the bathroom to wash up. Who knew that the little hooligan would follow behind? When he was squeezing the toothpaste, he didn't even know to roll up his sleeves, wasting his smart face. Bojo noticed the Almighty's gaze and replied calmly, Brother Mo, the team will be here today, they are all your brothers. Chin Mo squeezed the toothpaste lazily, replying softly, MMH, let's have a gathering then, Bojo said, reaching for the basin. But Chin Mo was one step ahead, grabbing her hand. His toothbrush was still in his mouth, his expression indifferent. He tilted his head slightly, his fingers rolling up her sleeves. Bojo watched the face under the glow. It was handsome and familiar, perhaps, there wasn't any difference. If you look at me again and recall the past, I'm going to get angry. Bojo couldn't tell if he was joking or sincere. All she knew was that he reached out, pressing the back of her neck towards him, his voice slow. Don't you know to roll up your sleeves when washing your face? How old are you? Bojo's ability to take care of herself wasn't very good. Now that her face had been washed, she couldn't help smiling. The Almighty's tone was filled with disappointment. He was just short of adding little Bojo's name in front. Bojo smiled and drank a glass of milk. The Almighty had also poured the milk for her. He had even tested the temperature with his hand before giving it to her. It was becoming more and more like what he had done when he was young. Bojo was delighted. Her good mood lasted until she sent a message to Lin Feng. The naive Lin Feng was still nervous. Do you think we should bring something over? Bojo didn't like typing, so she decided to send a voice message. We don't lack anything at home. Grandfather Butler made a whole roasted lamb. We can sit around the table and talk while we eat. You guys can train here after you're done eating. There are 13 high-end aliens, it's enough for you guys to play together. After hearing this, Lin Feng turned his head away, his expression a little dazed. Yunhu glanced at him. Why? Is it inconvenient for Little Spade? Very convenient. Lin Feng stood up. You can go there directly to train, but who would make a whole lamb handcuffed at home? Chapter 1303. When Lin Feng saw the grandfather butler that Bojo mentioned, he realized that there was really someone who could handcuff a whole lamb at home. At first, when they rang the doorbell, they paused for a moment when they saw the person. Especially Rao Rong, who was standing at the front. Initially, he had a cool posture, but after coming into contact with the old man's face, he paused, apologizing to him in English. Then, he turned around and asked Lin Feng, Are you sure you didn't find the wrong door? 109, this is the room. Lin Feng was also puzzled. Why was it a handsome British grandfather who opened the door? Should he send another voice message to ask Little Spade? Just as he was about to pick up his phone, an old man dressed in a well-ironed suit opened his mouth. He was well-mannered like an aristocrat. Young master is still adjusting the network. Please come in. Rao Rong rubbed his nose in fluent Chinese. Lin Feng's eyes widened even more. Young master? Which era did this term come from? But if it was the network, it had to be Little Spade. All of them looked as if they were sleepwalking. Even Uncle Ian put the cigarette he was about to put in his mouth into his hand. This situation was a little unexpected. Especially the Englishman who was wearing a black apron, his voice was very pleasant. Today, I have prepared a whole roasted lamb for everyone. Young master said that all of you like meat. Yes, they loved meat. But there was such a huge iron shelf in front of him, and behind him stood a British butler holding a professional knife and fork. This made them a little confused. The room was full of fragrance. Lin Feng could even see the whole goat in the center being shackled to a golden color. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. The oil was still dripping into the fire. It couldn't be any more fragrant. As for the old man, it was obvious that he was a professional chef. He picked up the machete and cut the sheep a few times. He was skilled and gentlemanly, as if he was performing. Coco touched his chin. This technique, huh? Shui Yao Yao leaned over, wanting to ask what was wrong. Coco bit the rabbit in his arms. It's so cool. I saw something similar when I was attending the Dubai Prince's conference with my dad. That's why our meal was at the level of a prince. Lin Feng was in a trance. Coco stopped talking. He was smelling the meat. It smelled so good. Roasted whole lamb was different from normal barbecue. The smell of fruit wood mixed with cumin powder burst forth with a fragrance that could instantly make one's stomach growl. Very few people in the family would do that. Unless he went to the Mongolian steppe. Rao Rong wasn't as surprised as before. After all, he had interacted with that person previously. If the other party was only the young master of the Fu family, it would be impossible for him to do this. But that was Z. A world-class hacker. During his time in the dark, he had heard many things about that person. He came from a family of hackers. Its origin was unfathomable. Some people said that Z had the aristocratic bloodline of a 19th century Oriental and Westerner. However, this had never been confirmed. After all, they did not know whether the person was a man or a woman. If he hadn't interacted with Little Spade, he wouldn't have realized she was Z. Now it seemed that he was really too rich. However, he had never understood. Why was Z always in the Fifth Avenue according to the information they had found? But Little Spade was in Jiang City. None of that mattered now. Chapter 1304. Bo Jiao was adjusting the network when she heard the commotion downstairs. She grabbed Qin Mo's hand and walked down the stairs. Probably because her hair had been pressed down when she slept last night, a strand of her silver hair was sticking up. Because she was adjusting the network cable, there was a layer of dust on the tip of her nose. She looked rather handsome. The moment she came down, Lin Feng shouted. Lin Feng let out a cry and opened his arms, wanting to hug her. But before his hand could reach her shoulder, Bo Jiao stopped him. Swoosh! A poker card flew over and stabbed him in the shoe. He stomped his feet in pain. F***ck, where did this poker card come from? Why did it stab me so? Before Lin Feng could finish his sentence, he was rooted to the ground by Qin Mo's gaze. That gaze was deep and unfathomable. It was casual and without a hint of warmth. Lin Feng stilled, calling out in a probing manner, "Captain." Qin Mo smiled. "Sorry, my hand slipped just now." Oh. Lin Feng was suddenly at a loss for words. His captain's politeness was so strange. In the past, when he had been disciplining them, he had never apologized to them. It was normal for him to punish them by not allowing them to eat meat. Those who were familiar with him knew that he would only be so polite to outsiders. Were they outsiders now? Just thinking about this made Lin Feng feel a little uncomfortable. However, it was only for a short while. Nothing was more important than his captain's safe return. The naive Lin Feng believed Qin Mo's words cheerfully. He reached over to place his hand on Bo Jiao's shoulder. "Little Spade, I brought a dozen beers, isn't it nice?" Swoosh! This time, the poker card flew over his head, accurately cutting off his hair. Lin Feng stilled, looking at his captain with a bitter expression. Did your hand slip again? Of course. Qin Mo smiled faintly. I wanted to stab your hand. Lin Feng turned his head, wanting to complain to his teammates. He hadn't expected Yun Hu to be the only humane one who knew to pull him behind his back. The others only used their gazes to tell him that he deserved it. F***CK. What kind of people were they? Little Spade was even worse. She said with a serious face, Team Flower Lin, I've wanted to tell you for a long time. I have a family now. Don't touch me all the time. My boyfriend won't be happy. Don't touch me so casually in the future. Lin Feng. You called me brother. When we were drinking erguotu, you put your arm around my shoulder and said that I was a submissive with no threat. I didn't expect you to be such a little spade. With this commotion, the group of people seemed to be the same as before. Uncle Ian was chuckling with a cigarette in his mouth, Coco and Feng Shang were whispering into each other's ears, while Rao Rong and Lin Chintao were adding the finishing touches. They didn't seem uncomfortable at all. Bo Jiu displayed her love with a handsome face, her methods a little shameless. Qin Mo sat beside her lazily, his arm resting on the back of the chair. Even though there wasn't any intimacy, one could feel that the two of them were one, even now. There was a lot of flirtatious talk in the esports circle. Everyone was talking while eating and drinking, and the whole place was filled with laughter. Shui Yao Yao looked at this group of people, her heart heating up. She really felt good. Even though she was covered in scars. Chapter 1305. As a qualified butler, of course, the old man sensed the change in Shui Yao Yao's mood. He very considerately passed the napkin over and pushed the dessert forward. He said in a low voice, "This is young master's favorite. Paired with lemon tea, it will improve a lady's mood." Shui Yao Yao's eyes widened in shock at his action. She lifted her head and met the youngster's gentle gaze. Now, she finally understood why Her Highness Jiu was so warm. With the old man around, the upbringing was imperceptible. In reality, Shui Yao Yao's thoughts were both right and wrong. If Grandpa Butler knew about this, he would definitely sigh and say with pride and helplessness, "My young master's gentlemanly demeanor is much stronger than the men outside, but I'm clearly teaching her lessons on being a lady." No matter how she looked at it, it was a case of bad upbringing. But in Grandfather Butler's heart, his young lord had always been a rare treasure. That was why he had prepared everything. Lin Feng couldn't help glancing over when he was wiping the cutlery with a white cloth. His posture was so elegant. Where exactly did Little Spade poach him from? He was amazing. Lin Feng couldn't hide his words, he would always ask questions directly. Bo Jiu chuckled. Grandfather Butler was around when I was young, but I don't have the ability to poach him over. Qin Mo nodded. Who else could it be? Lin Feng was confused. It couldn't be the Fu family, right? Oh right. Bo Jiu placed the cup in her hand down, changing the topic naturally. Brother Mo's hand is healed. Grandfather Butler performed the surgery and it's very flexible now. It doesn't hurt when he twists his wrist, you don't have to worry anymore. She hadn't told anyone about this news. Now, it was released. Everyone at the table was stunned for a moment, and then they unconsciously laughed. They were probably too happy. Bo Jiu knew what they were thinking. For the past 3 years, he had been competing with an injured hand. For the sake of Supreme Alliance, he had given up his best position as a jungler and couldn't invade the enemy's jungle as he pleased. It was probably because he was worried that his injury would relapse at a crucial moment and he would lose the competition. He knew Supreme Alliance couldn't leave him, hence, even when the doctor told him to rest for 2 years, he didn't listen. Because everyone knew what 2 years meant in the esports circle. In 2 years, those who said they liked you would fall in love with other teams. In 2 years, an esports player's golden period might be over. 2 years, Supreme Alliance couldn't wait that long. Hence, be it Lin Feng, Yunhu, or even Feng Yi, they all felt guilty. Countless times, they would think that it would have been great if they could have persevered until that person came back. After realizing that dream, they could have retired. That person would be able to recuperate in peace instead of wasting all of his talent and pride bit by bit like this. Indeed, many people would not understand. How did Feng Yi feel when he saw Spade Z maneuvering the game character and gliding through the wilderness like the wind? It wasn't just the light of Supreme Alliance. At that time, he thought, finally, such a shadow has finally appeared. I can make that person come back. Chapter 1306. Yunhu could tell what was hidden in Lin Feng's eyes. That naive guy's first reaction was to send a message to Feng Yi, who was still in the company. Fox Feng, do you know that Captain's hand has recovered? Ha ha ha, Captain's hand has recovered. If Zhao Sanpang and the others dare to be arrogant in the group again, I'll close the door and release Captain. The Almighties all had their own almighty groups, especially those that were at their level. Yunhu wondered if this person had forgotten that Captain had lost his memory and couldn't play at all. But he didn't stop him, watching as he chatted with Feng Yi, adding, I feel like he can still play for another 10 years. When they gathered together, there seemed to be a kind of strength. They could still be like this, 10 years younger. When Feng Yi saw the WeChat message, he was still dealing with matters online. He hadn't slept for a day and had to drink with the media. His suit jacket hung on his arm, the fatigue of the business world. The little assistant beside him said, Boss Feng, why don't you sleep for a while? We'll keep an eye on them. He held onto his phone and suddenly broke into a smile. She didn't know what he saw. He placed his hand on his neck and pressed it, returning to his smiling fox self. I'll keep an eye on them. Go get some coffee and reward everyone for their hard work before the Asian Cup. The little assistant wanted to say that it wasn't hard, but she sneaked a glance at him. In the past, she didn't understand the concept of an esports company. She thought it was just a simple game where the players just had to compete properly. Now that she was here, she understood. A good team. They didn't just need players to rush forward, they also needed someone to support them from the back. He had to think of everything and take precautions. If he couldn't think of anything, he had to deal with it immediately. Because this was related to the internet, the information spread quickly. It was fine if there was a small conflict, but what he was most afraid of was people distorting the truth. For example, now. The person who claimed to be a fan of the team was obstructing the team with every sentence. It was obvious that she didn't want Spade Z to return. Once the public relations department was in charge, she would say that she was disappointed in the team, that her feelings were wasted and that they were all fed to the dogs. If you responded to these things, it would be the team being unreasonable. Feng Yi usually saw such things. He would sit in front of the computer and smoke occasionally. He would control it for a while before returning to the matter at hand. This was the only way Spade Z could come back. Probably because of the good news, the atmosphere at the dining table was good until Rao Rong stood up, looking towards Qin Mo. Since your hand is healed, let's have a match. We can see how well we can cooperate. Lin Feng's hand froze. There was no reply from Coco either. At that moment, the room was extremely quiet. Qin Mo was the only one who was still holding onto a knife and fork. He cut a piece of lamb with a perfect posture and placed it between his lips. After he finished eating, he curved his lips slightly. I'm not interested in games. All of a sudden, the atmosphere around them changed, and it became slightly cold. Lin Feng immediately turned to look at Rao Rong, as though to say, we've already made a deal, why did you change your mind at the last minute? Chapter 1307. Rao Rong knew that he was the only one who would say such words to Qin Mo. Everyone in Supreme Alliance had been groomed by him, so of course he wouldn't say it. The only one who wasn't afraid of Chin Mo would spoil him to the core. How was he going to change the situation if he didn't interact with him? Besides, it was Chin Mo, he couldn't just say that he wasn't interested. It wasn't just the same team, even his former opponent was waiting for him to display his true abilities in the Asian Cup. If he needed a bad guy, he would be the one. How about it? Rao Rong laughed lightly, continuing, do you want to play? Or do you think you're not good enough that you don't even dare to play with me? As his words fell, the surrounding atmosphere completely dropped to a freezing point. Chin Mo placed his cutlery down, meeting his gaze, his voice calm. I seem to be looked down upon, how am I going to play? That's right, Chin Mo didn't even know what it meant to play. Me, you, Lin Feng, Yunhu, and Uncle Ian, the 5 of us will play together and see what results we can achieve. Rao Rong glanced at the youngster. Z doesn't have to participate. Once she enters the game, I'm afraid she will either win or stay by your side to protect you. She won't be able to gauge your current standard. All right. One word. Chin Mo grabbed his jacket and stood up. There was a smile on his lips, but his emotions didn't fluctuate. It was hard to tell if he was happy or angry. There was a huge room upstairs filled with computers, perfect for playing. But Bojo didn't move. Chin Mo glanced at her. What is it? Are you afraid my fragile heart can't take it? No. Bojo stood up. I was wondering if I could sit beside you when you play. You probably aren't familiar with the character's abilities. When Chin Mo heard this, his eyes finally warmed up a little. This fellow still had a conscience. Wasn't today's show just to get him to play? Chin Mo lowered his head, smirking. When he glanced up, he smiled faintly. You're my sugar daddy, where do you want to sit if not beside me? My legs? There's no need for your legs, it might affect your game, she replied seriously. Lin Feng was about to vomit blood when he heard this. You're just going to sit if it doesn't affect your game? Also, what was the term, sugar daddy? Little Spade, do you still want Captain to call you daddy? What did you say to Captain when he lost his memory? Lin Feng wanted to have a good talk with Little Spade, but his captain was guarding against him like a wolf. It really hurt his heart. However, it wasn't easy for them to sit together and play together again. Everyone was a little excited. Yao Yao, Lin Shentao, and the others also turned on their computers. Rao Rong sat there, placing the earpiece on his head. I'm the mid lane. Top lane. Uncle Ian still had a cigarette in his mouth. Lin Feng chose a healer support. I'll use this to practice. I'll play the ad carry. Yunhu tilted his head, scanning the situation online. They all use large sizes. The impact of using a main account was that once you went online, you would immediately be targeted by a large number of fans. Usually, just one person alone could cause a shockwave. Now that the 4 of them had come online at the same time, it was like a bomb had been thrown into the air, blowing up the entire game's fairness. Chapter 1308. When Chin Mo's game ID appeared in everyone's line of sight, the entire internet seemed to have paused for 0.1 seconds. Then, it really exploded. The public chat exploded with messages. Awe. Screams filled the entire game. My almighty Chin. What did I see? My almighty Chin. I can't take it anymore, calm down, let me take another look. Oh my god, it's really my almighty Chin. I jumped off the bed excitedly and ran 3 rounds downstairs. There's a surprise online today. What? Almighty Chin is back? Where? Click on the Almighty's view, the first room shows Almighty Chin and his team. F***CK, Black 5. I can't believe I'll be able to see this in my lifetime. Don't stop me, I want to see my husband. The game hadn't started and Chin Mo was still choosing his character. It wasn't just here, even the official Weibo was bombarded. No matter what Black 5 said, he was disappointed. But there was one thing, the popularity of the official Weibo didn't decrease at all. Every esports team knew what the name Chin Mo represented. It was the time when they didn't know his background and wanted to poach him over, but he refused to leave, choosing the small manager, Feng Yi. All the businessmen knew that it was a hot topic, traffic, popularity, and godly operating skills that no one could surpass. He wasn't a celebrity. But he was more popular than a celebrity. Many people couldn't catch up to him. The popularity continued to rise. It was the same for the number of spectators. Why hasn't Almighty Chin chosen his character? The jungler's position is empty, Almighty Chin will definitely do it. I have a feeling that I'll be crying because of my husband's cool maneuvering. But this time, Chin Mo took way too long to choose his character. Lin Feng tilted his head and glanced over. His captain held the mouse in one hand and asked the youngster beside him casually, "Which character did you choose previously? Do you want to use the one I used?" Bo Jiu chuckled. She turned her body and held onto the mouse through his hand. Her breath was seductive. This is the most handsome assassin and hero. He's dressed in white and has a long sword in his hand. His movements are graceful and when he's powerful, he can turn the whole place upside down. Many girls like him and they call him hubby or little brother in private. You like it too? Chin Mo clicked confirm while asking a certain someone absent-mindedly. What's there to like about a fake character? Bo Jiu held her cheeks and smiled devilishly. I like it. Really? Chin Mo had the urge to change this character and choose a new one. His thin lips were a little cold. He didn't look handsome at all. He was just a pretty boy with a wine flask hanging on his waist. He looked sloppy. Previously, he had thought that although the prey he had his eyes on didn't have any obvious advantages, he had a good eye. Now, it seemed that his foresight wasn't that great. Unexpectedly, before he could finish his thoughts, the youngster's voice came from the other side. The youngster's voice came from the other side of the phone again. Her breath was very close to him, as if she was speaking beside his ear. It was hot and ticklish. Brother Mo, you're the best at playing him. Honestly, in the entire game, he's the only one who looks especially handsome when you're playing him. You're tuning in to the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.